We'd like to begin by acknowledging the indigenous Gabrielino Tongva people and their unceded ancestral lands. This includes the entire Los Angeles basin and present-day Anaheim. We understand that acknowledgement alone is not enough, and therefore we encourage you to consider the indigenous people and cultures that formed the land or lands that you inhabit today.
In the unlikely event of an emergency, please use the exit bay at the back of the hall. And now, the Science Fiction and Fantasy Association is proud to welcome you to the 58th Annual Nebula Awards. Airship Nebula, launching in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Cheryl Platz is an internationally renowned design leader, author, speaker, and actress. Her first book, Design Beyond Devices, Creating Multimodal Cross-Device Experiences, is the manual for folks who aspire to design the Starship Bridge of their dreams. She is currently the Director of User Experience for the Player Platform at Riot Games and owner of design education company IdeaPlatz, LLC.
Please welcome your Friend Planet Away mission leader, Commander Cheryl Platz.
Good evening, passengers of the airship Nebula, and welcome to the 58th Annual Nebula Awards. I'll be your mission commander today here on Friend Planet as we celebrate the Nebula Awards presented by the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association, and we've got a big evening in store. I trust you've all reviewed your pre-briefing materials regarding the native sentient species, the caterflies. Please keep the following 3 safety rules in mind while exploring. Number 1, far too many travelers have mistaken a poisonous life form for a delicious hors d'oeuvres. Therefore, please do not lick nature. 2, don't pick up any mysterious jewels or artifacts, and please do not lean too close to any singing plants. We're happy to 3D print replicas of your favorite Friend Planet observations for a small fee in the airship gift shop. 3, do not follow any suspiciously attractive humanoids. You cannot be certain your potential hot dish is not a rogue hologram, fey royalty, or even 3 caterfly in a tuxedo. I enjoy my command because I get to draw from my strengths and unique skills in a number of fields. I'm a designer, author, actress, director, streamer, improviser, disabled woman with bendy collagen, Pokemon trainer. As my friends like to say, I'm a 20-sided woman. And despite my many other achievements over the decades, my mother, hi Mom, and happy Mother's Day to all the moms here. My mother loves to point out that I was, in fact, also MC of my 6th grade talent show. This wide variety of skills is evidently just what we'll need for a successful planetary excursion. Since I don't get to do planetary excursions very often, I spend most of my time as Director of User Experience for the player platform at Riot Games, home of League of Legends, Arcane, and Valorant. User experience designers look out for the ways that human behavior and digital experiences will collide. Good preparation in case our ship's computer encounters unexpected operational parameters today. Computer, what's our status?
Everything is currently nominal. 73% chance of successful plan execution without deviation.
What did I tell you? Never tell me the odds. While I may be here in a professional capacity, please allow me a moment to express my excitement about being in a room of fellow authors. While my first book came out in 2020, it was not the fiction book I envisioned writing in my youth. I described design beyond devices, creating multimodal cross-device experiences, as a manual for folks who want to design the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. My work has always been influenced by the power of science fiction and fantasy writing. While reading was always critical to me growing up. In my early days, I read everything. Kids' books, my dad's store of PC magazines, VCR manuals, our actual tax forms. I was like the literal embodiment of Johnny Five from Short Circuit. Need more input. But because I was reading so much, we couldn't keep up with kids' fiction, and my reading expanded into Stephen King and Michael Crichton just as much as it did R.L. Stine, Christopher Pike, and many other classics and fantasy selections. But Jurassic Park stood out to me with preteen girl Lex and her comfort with computer systems. I know Unix. Yeah, the optics of a 3rd grader reading The Stand are questionable at best. But it was these stories that opened my mind to the deep complexities of the world around me. Actions had consequences. Technology could harm and save. But of course, my geekery didn't stop at reading. Oh no, I'd been deeply encouraged by my 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Tickle, to nurture my writing talents. My little group of nerdy students at Edgewood Elementary got together and channeled these skills into a semi-permanent recess waiver so we could stay inside developing scripts based on our favorite books to perform as skits. We called ourselves the Edgewood Entertainers. But this effort culminated in 5th grade when we wrote an entire spec episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation and taped it, complete with a replicator gag that included an overturned box with a slot cut in it, a student hidden in that box, and a cream pie. I can't believe no one optioned that script. But in all seriousness, that technology gripped our young minds so much that it drove us to imagine a better world. A world with more cream pie. Sending some stardust to our friend Bobby, who left us too soon. I didn't anticipate how important a role Star Trek would play in my adulthood, however. In 2011, I joined the founding cast of Where No Man Has Gone Before, an improvised parody of the original series of Star Trek. During our 9-year mission, I played a variety of roles depending on our season, our version of Nurse Chapel, an original helmswoman, and countless female planetary leaders who got the eye of Captain Kirk. At first, it was difficult for me to process honoring the original series as someone who grew up on The Next Generation. During rehearsals, we had an exploratory improv game called 3-Line Misogyny, where 2 players tried to encapsulate a misogynistic interaction in 3 lines or less. It was less about what we wanted to do on stage and more about exploring what had been in the show and in the era so that we could poke fun at it within the genre. During the process, I picked up the book series These Are the Voyages, which provide incredible detail about each and every original season episode and the why and the how of how they were produced. Suddenly, the context unfolded before me, and episodes which seemed to have aged poorly looked much more logical as edgy artistic expressions in the moment that they were produced. Now, I have a much deeper appreciation for the tension between the timeless message of a work and that which is a product of its time. Original series did important work, but it couldn't cure all of society in 79 episodes. It shone light on a better future, but connected it to the context of a problematic present. With this additional perspective, we as improv performers could look for ways to contrast the culture on our version of the ship with alien cultures to show the tensions between the 60s and today, free of the censors of the past. But I'll admit, it's easier to backseat pilot a starship. Speaking of eras, it's an exciting era for the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association, as you've so recently welcomed game writers into the fold. I'm so thrilled for my peers in the games industry who are on board the airship Nebula with us right now. Interactive narrative is an exciting and challenging contrast to traditional prose. Where novels, novellas, and novelettes often create a well-defined character in the mind's eye, game writing often involves creating space for the player to project themselves directly into the story, changing the narrative in some way with their actions. The delicate balancing act of creating freedom while maintaining creative integrity strong enough to move us and compel us to keep playing is truly worth celebrating. I myself started my professional writing career as a video game producer and writer. I got my start as an intern on The Sims Makin' Magic when I was invited to write object text. Did I put a subtle and legally distinct Homestar Runner reference into a trash compactor? Yes, I did. That's what happens when you give an intern the keys to the car. But I also caught enough of The Sims tone in my writing that I was invited to hop over to the Sims 2 project and help them on some object and career writing. Perhaps my greatest work was the description of a small children's chair shaped like a bear. Allow me to grace you with a poetry reading. In Happy Land, there is a chair that loves to hug a derriere. Mr. Barely-Butts is your friend. Sit on him with your rear end. Yes, friends, the Mr. Barely-Butts chair did, in fact, ship with the game. They were simpler times. In later projects, my writing work involved adapting film shooting scripts into narrative arcs and interactive content for licensed games, and lore for original games. This took plenty of consideration. What parts of this journey lend themselves best to action, or to sneaking, to conversation or narration with other characters? And how do we want the player to feel when they're making choices? Game writing is not just about story, but about weaving game mechanics and player needs seamlessly into the world. But what about when the story jumps into the real world? Fans of science fiction can easily list many technologies that seem ripped from the pages of their favorite books, in many cases because they are. As a young computer nerd watching Star Trek, I never could have imagined that my path would lead me to be seen as one of many pioneers in natural language and multimodal interfaces, working on experiences like Cortana and Alexa. All those years spent watching Kirk and Picard and Spock interacting with their ship's computer, and I became one of the folks designing the systems that would respond, and making sure that they would very rarely be talked into destroying themselves. Now, the work that you do is more often than not at the forefront of technologists' minds. It's not a coincidence that computer is one of the few wake words that the Echo devices from Alexa recognize. When I first joined the Cortana team, a colleague gifted me a copy of Feed by M.T. Anderson and recommended I read it so that we could discuss the implications of the world depicted. Contrary to popular belief, most of us don't want to create a dystopia. Most of us. But the fact that some of us still do mean that your work is more important than ever. Reading about the worst consequences of progress helps us see past our own enthusiasm for the unchecked applications of technologies. The number of times I've quoted Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park is beyond measure. Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they never stopped to consider whether they should. When I designed the core notification system for Amazon's Alexa, I was initially pretty clear she should only interrupt with content you asked for and in very specific ways. But now that I'm long gone, she's off interrupting me about new authors I should follow. My work run amok and used against me, but at least it's promoting your book sales. Hey. In my book, Design Beyond Devices, I talk about the importance of catastrophic imagination, something that's come naturally to this community. We can't predict all possible futures, but it is important to think about the worst consequences of success and the best ways to react to failure. I call this concept optipessimism. The metaphor I use to teach optipessimism is about as far from Star Trek as it gets. Dung. I was on a hike when our guides kept pointing out signs of large animals passing through very recently. Dry dung, trampled brush, mother and child tracks, and then a huge pile of fresh animal dung. I should have considered the worst consequences of success on that hike. What if we got closer to our target wildlife than we bargained for? And what was our plan if the worst came to pass? I understand you've just eaten, so let's leave the dung where it belongs. Suffice to say, that famous Captain Kirk barrel roll may have saved my life. Improvised planetary journeys, talking computers, optipessimism, all of this brings me back to that questing to the final frontier. From working on the first touchscreen gaming devices on a Nintendo DS launch title to teaching Cortana and Alexa new capabilities, all while exploring humanity's promise on stage, I learned how to weave these many parts into the future Starship Bridge I learned about and watched so many times. Fiction is becoming real. Science fiction and fantasy have not only inspired me to become a better, more inclusive version of myself, but also to build tools alongside other talented individuals that will get us to the final frontier. And it's not just about science fiction, much as I've talked about starships. Sir Terry Pratchett's work has shone a light into my very soul, lifting me up in my darkest moments. After all, as a wise old man once told a young adventurer in a dark, pixelated cave, it's dangerous to go alone. The stories you write help us see beyond the borders of our own consciousness and redefine what it means to open our minds and our hearts to each other. On today's Away mission, we will explore how our shipmates have cast light on the vast expanses of galactic experience. Optipessimistically, we hope to befriend the caterflies, but we are prepared to cope if things take an unexpected turn.
Excuse me, Commander Platz. The advanced research from the science team on the planet's caterflies is complete. I'm sending it to your datapad now.
What convenient timing. Let me take a quick look. According to this, if a caterfly lands on your head, the best thing to do is to quietly sit still until it leaves. You may offer it treats to coax it down, but avoid scritches without a clear line of sight on your hand placement. We have not yet determined whether the rumors of fire claws are true. Please identify a safety buddy and ensure all cellular communications devices are silenced to avoid irreparably disrupting planetary relations. Also, please note that the nearest exit may be behind you or in a parallel dimension. Let's get started on tonight's grand adventure. Please join me in welcoming SFWA President and Rita Award-winning author, Jeffe Kennedy.
Good evening, everyone. So lovely to see everybody here tonight. Thank you for joining us at the 58th Annual Nebula Awards. The work we do here at the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association would not be possible without the help of all of the volunteers who give their time, energy, and effort throughout the entire year to make our programming possible. They have hosted workshops, spoken on panels, joined and chaired committees, and supported the ceremony that we are celebrating tonight. If you volunteered this year in any way, please stand up right now. I'm serious, stand up. Stand up. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Okay, now sit down. We seriously appreciate the work that you do. You make our community shine. I would also like to recognize the staff of SFWA who, although paid, work far beyond what we ask of them. And I would love for everyone to give them a huge round of applause for making this happen. So, people often thank me for the work that I do as president, which I appreciate, but there is a great perk of being president of SFWA in that you get to choose who this year's Grand Master will be. You have to run it through people, but ultimately, people will tell you it's your choice. And later this evening, we'll be honoring one of our greats, Greg Bear, and he said to me on this most recent Grand Master choice, he sent me an email and he said, "You are president, you get to pick." And it meant a great deal to me, not only because Greg Bear was emailing me. So, this year we are proud to celebrate one of my all-time favorite authors, someone who is hugely formative to me, both as a writer and, I like to think, as a human being. We get to celebrate our newest Grand Master, who prefers to be called our Grand Matriarch, which I think is wonderfully appropriate. The 58th Annual Awards, our Grand Master is Robin McKinley.
The temptation is very strong to say, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, for a few minutes, turn off the recording doohickey, heave a deep sigh of gratitude and of relief that this grisly speech writing requirement has been circumvented, and then hitch up the large galumphing dog and go for a walk. He's a rescue, and nearly 3 years ago now, having been walking him exhaustingly for several weeks so he could get used to me before I took him home, I somewhat nervously asked how much exercise he needed to, really tire him out. The response somberly given was, "This dog is never tired." Oh, well, too late. We'd already bonded. I've been scuttling in his wake ever since. The reason I'm not there giving this non-speech in person is because I have ME/CFS, which is a really bad idea if you're adopting large galumphing dogs. But I needed a dog and he needed a home. But you see, I don't have time to write a speech. I'm either walking my dog or lying on the floor gasping. I will, however, make time to say thank you. Thank you very much. Golly. It's funny how sideways the unexpected can knock you. I was completely confounded by the news of the award. What? SFWA, bless them, had the tact and the uncommon sense to approach me through my agent, who knew that the portcullises were all down, and I was working hard on a new book. Yes, finally, I know it's been a while. and that the only distractions allowed related to eating, sleeping, and walking the dog, and lying on the floor gasping. Although I can and do eat at my desk, and I have a notepad, yes, the old-fashioned paper variety, and a pen with, ink by my bed for urgent thoughts at 3 a.m. I moved to the back of beyond in Scotland about 4 years ago and barely know what social media are, anymore. I haven't been on Facebook in so long it refuses to believe I'm me and won't let me in. And TikTok is something that happens to other people, although occasionally friends send me links. Chasing the galumphing dog encourages me to forget everything but what I'm trying to stop him eating or rolling in. And when we get home, covered in mud, seawater, and odd-smelling substances better not identified, by the time I allow myself to sit down with a cup of tea and savor a non-frantic moment, I want reality in 3 dimensions. I want a satisfyingly heavy brick of hard copy, which I will try not to get fingerprints on. I will open it politely and read a few paragraphs or maybe a few chapters. It may not even be F and SF. I read a lot of nonfiction now I'm old and can't seem to deny reality as single-mindedly as I wanted to when I was younger. Then I prod the computer, yes, I confess, the computer, and get back to work. And the empty screen is the empty screen like it used to be the blank piece of paper. I am not a true Luddite. I spend a lot of time following my nose through the internet, but this tends to be for organic food and jigsaw puzzles and Converse All-Stars, not, publishing world headlines or convention news. Books still find me somehow. I don't know how this works, it just does. I don't want to know what I'm missing because I can't keep up with what I know about. Yes, I read ebooks, but if I read one I really like, I buy it in hard copy, like I have any shelf space left, which I do not. I print out the end of every working day. And just by the way, if IBM ever starts making Selectric typewriters again, I will buy one before I finish reading the first announcement ad. So, into the middle of this my small world, my agent emails me. Ping, goes my email. I allow one eye to pass over the incoming. I do answer my agent when I'm pretty much incommunicado with the rest of the world. She wrote, I have some very nice news for you. Erg, I emailed back. SFWA has chosen you for this year's Grand Master Award, she said. Erg? I said, intelligently. Allow me to pause here again and say thank you. Where I sit in the kitchen with my laptop, I can look over the town from the top of my hill and see the ocean going splish, splash, froth, crash, wham, etc. Note that as I write this near the end of April, it's sleeting, hailing, and snowing. Scotland in spring isn't all larks and bluebells. Also, there is the gloriously named Har, which, when it rolls in off the sea, turns the world invisible gray. Of course, I know I write books for a living, and I need people to buy them so the dog, the rose bushes, and I can keep eating. But how do I explain this? I've always been a cranky introvert, and apologies to anyone I owe an apology to. But since my husband Peter died 8 years ago, I've gone all, well, I won't say mellow, I think mellow is beyond me, but I've gone near to hand and tactile. I smell my roses, I read my books, I walk my dog, I do insane amounts of raw organic food prep. Nothing is farther away than the view of the ocean. That horizon goes on forever, of course, and my eye is drawn to it. But it's drawn to it while sitting in the kitchen at the computer with an inconveniently long-legged dog stretched out behind me, keeping my back warm. The SFWA Grand Master Award? Are you kidding me? I remember SFWA starting up when I was a teenager, and I knew they'd created the Grand Master Award, but none of it had anything to do with me. I grew up reading the Grand Masters before SFWA existed. I read them before I knew writing was a thing, and I kept reading them after I knew writing was a thing, and that I longed more than anything to be a writer too, and which wasn't going to happen because I was a mere mumble-worded mortal, and real writers were divinities. The first story I can remember more or less finishing was when I was 9, and it was about a horse. I already loved fairy tales, but I hadn't really twigged fantasy yet. That would come with my first mind-blowing reading of The Lord of the Rings when I was 11, and ahead of the curve in 1963, because my best friend in 7th grade's brother was in college in America, doing his bit to create the genre-breaking tsunami that was Loader. But I read everyone on the Grandmaster list when I was a kid. Clifford Simek scared me to death. The 9 Billion Names of God is my Arthur Clarke story, never mind 2001. I adored Ray Bradbury. Harlan Ellison freaked me out. Michael Moorcock taught me fantasy could be really weird. Peter Beagle was a huge influence when I started trying to take my own writing seriously. All of them guys. Back in those days, women writers were hard to find, especially for those of us who were raised to believe that there were hardly any women writers because women can't write. So we didn't look that hard. It was too depressing. The list of grand old men is incomplete without Theodore Sturgeon, however, who was messing around with gender and sexuality before anyone else I found to read in the 1960s. He should be a Grandmaster too. And now I am on this long, venerable, and intimidating list? A woman writer and everything? Beep! Have I said thank you again in the last 3 minutes? Thank you. In the previous paragraph, when I said that I was a mere mortal and writers were, I didn't say gods. Barring the redoubtable Andre Norton, women writers didn't exist in the SFWA universe for far too long, and it pleases me very much to witness the seesaw not merely balancing out, but lately tipping the other way. Women rule, yes! The SFWA Grand Matriarchy Award marches proudly on. I look forward to the day when the seesaw does balance, but gender fluidity and new ways of self-identifying, or declining to accept any box-ticking identity whatsoever, means we need to remake the seesaw, which I'm sure a committed group of science fiction and fantasy writers is splendidly equal to. And perhaps the name of the Grand Something or Other Award could come into the discussion someday too. The bottom line is we're all in it together. Long may we reign. Meanwhile, thank you. Thank you.
As you can hear from Robin's voice herself, she is indomitable, amazing, and a huge influence on me. And on so many of us, especially young women writers coming up in fantasy. It has been, I won't go into her entire biography, but being able to correspond with her via email has been one of the highlights of my life. And I think we are all delighted to welcome her as our newest Grand Matriarch. Thank you.
Congratulations to our newest Grandmaster, Robin McKinley. And now, the first Kate Wilhelm Solstice Award of the evening. Please welcome Christine Taylor-Butler, children's author of more than 80 books, including the Lost Tribe series.
This is nerve-wracking. Okay, for those of you who are relatively new to SFWA or attending your first event, the Solstice Award was introduced in 2008 and renamed in 2016 for Kate Wilhelm, who was one of the first recipients. And the purpose of the award is to recognize outstanding contributions in science fiction, fantasy, and the community in general. Cerise Rennie Murphy is the author of short stories, adult speculative fiction, and a children's series. A science fiction fan, from an early age, she continued to hone her craft while earning master's degrees in social work and international relations at Boston College and Johns Hopkins. I say that because a lot of people think writers are just writers, but we have so many more facets to our lives behind the scenes. I first became aware of her at a really small grassroots convention in Atlanta. And since then, I've been watching as she has been making the rounds at other conventions. And here's what stood out about her. She was one of the only people not talking about her own work. She was asking people about their work, and you could see the wheels turning. She has 15-year background in program development and fundraising. Board, pay attention to that part. Let me repeat, program development and fundraising. And she began to see opportunities to serve the community, especially when COVID-19 hit. So what she did was what many of you have done, and please know that we on the board see your contributions, was she saw a need and she took it. She created VirtuousCon, which was a virtual convention on a different platform than Zoom. It has 4 floors of vendors virtually. She brought in comic book writers and celebrities from TV and film. She brought in artists, she brought in illustrators, and because she knew how economically distressed most of us were during pandemic when publishing was shutting down and companies were putting people on furlough, she got private and public donations to support this conference, and she only charged $10 for people to attend. I saw a quote in an article about her book, The Wolf Queen, where she said, "In the land of Yet, at the edge of the forbidden forest, a young woman lives alone. By unanimous consent of the board of directors of SFWA, it is my pleasure to award the Kate Williams Solstice Award to Cerise Rennie Murphy in recognition for your contributions and to let you know you are no longer alone."
You made me cry.
You can't cry until the speech is over.
Oh my gosh. I was so prepared not to cry, but I blame you, Christine. And I thank you. Oh, wow. I wrote a speech, but I just need to take a minute. Thank you so much for having me here. This is just incredible. Okay, I'm not gonna do the ugly cry. All right, focus. I wanna first thank the board of directors of SFWA for this incredible honor, one I never imagined for myself. But I would also like to acknowledge that I wouldn't be here without the love and support of my family and friends, some of whom I'm grateful to have here tonight. Mom, thank you for being the source of every great good thing in my life. You have always believed in me, encouraged me in all my dreams, even the ones you didn't understand, especially the ones you didn't understand. I know what love is because of you. Arye and Sky, my children, you inspire me every day to be as bold and as brave as you are. I hope this moment lets you know that your wildest dreams are possible and that the path that you define for yourself is the right one for you. Thank you for seeing exactly who I am and loving me for that. Finally, to anyone watching tonight, I want to tell you that the only reason I'm here is because I followed a calling that didn't make any sense. I am a woman who didn't even update her phone. starting an online sci-fi convention for no other reason than one, I saw a need, two, I wanted to do something about it, and three, God told me to. In following that path, I found an incredible team of people who are willing to help me and work with me to make my vision bigger and brighter than anything I could have imagined on my own. And I want to acknowledge the team of Virtuous Con and Narazu, which was a newsletter I started way before I even thought of Virtuous Con. I didn't think that anyone was paying attention to anything I was doing. I just knew I wanted to create a space where all the talented, beautiful, independent creators and Black and brown creators that I knew could be celebrated. Following that calling, that voice inside me brought me here tonight. And if I could leave one thing with anybody, it's just this. Your dream doesn't have to make sense to anyone else to be valid. Don't let anyone interrupt your vision or your purpose. Seek it as it calls and follow it to the partnerships and friendships that will help you make it real. Thank you so much. I know, we're going.
Congratulations, Cerise.
Come in, Commander Platz. This is the airship Nebula contacting you on an isolated frequency only humans can hear.
Platz here. Why don't you want the caterflies to hear?
Based on current mission parameters and caterfly interactions, I estimate a 60% chance that they are untrustworthy.
But why?
Have you met a cat? I advise caution.
It's possible, but it's also possible they're just trying to be friendly. Relax.
I am a computer. I am always relaxed. I'll continue to analyze the data.
You do that. Meanwhile, please join me in welcoming to the stage actor, game designer, and dungeon master of Critical Role, Matthew Mercer.
Well, hello, friends. My name is Matthew Mercer, and I am what you would call an individual forged in the fires of genre media. I was raised by fantastical cartoons, thrilling films, and the transporting words of Asimov and Tolkien. I often lost myself in the sweeping tales and endless worlds of science fiction, chilling horror, and magical fantasy. And with time, I found that I was not alone. With each generation, the shared love of genre fiction in all of its forms grows exponentially. And with it, new writers to craft and create these worlds and stories. We are now truly living in a time where transformative genre fiction is spearheading the juggernauts that are the motion picture and television industries, written by incredible talent like our finalists for the Ray Bradbury Award for Outstanding Dramatic Presentation. They are crafting myths and dreamscapes that are truly enrapturing and inspiring the whole of our planet, often without the praise or compensation they ultimately deserve. And that fight goes on. But tonight, we have all come together to celebrate those artisans of story that weave words in ways that invite us all to adventure beyond the mundane and perhaps come back a little better or a little weirder than we left. And with that, the finalists are
Andor, One Way Out, written by Beau Willimon and Tony Gilroy. Everything Everywhere All at Once, written by Dan Kwan and Daniel Scheinert. Nope, written by Jordan Peele. Our Flag Means Death, written by David Jenkins, Eliza Jimenez Cosio, Zadri Ferrer Geddes, William Meny, Maddie Dye, Alyssa Lane, John Mahone, Simone Nathan, Natalie Torres, Zachary Alexander Stevens, Alex J. Sherman, Jess Tom, Adam Stein, and Yvonne Zima. The Sandman, Season 1, written by Neil Gaiman, Lauren Bellow, Vanessa Benton, Mike Dringenberg, Sam Keith, Catherine Smith McMullen, Heather Belson, Jim Campolongo, Jay Franklin, Austin Guzman, Alexander Newman Wise, Omini Roja, David Goyer, and Alan Heinberg. Severance, written by Dan Erickson, Chris Black, Andrew Colville, Amanda Overton, Anna Oyong Munch, Helen Lee, Kari Drake, and Mark Friedman.
And with that, the Bradbury Award goes to Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I am not in the movie. But Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert could not be with us tonight, so they have sent the following speech. It is an honor to be recognized by the Nebula Awards. Most of our favorite books, movies, TV shows, video games, graphic novels, poems, daydreams, and stray thoughts could be filed under the category of science fiction. And thus, it is a genre that has always been a central part of our lives. It is incredibly humbling to be sharing this recognition with so many other science fiction writers who are much smarter and more talented than we will ever be. And so rather than fumble around with our own words, we'll steal the words of one of our favorite sci-fi writers, addressing other sci-fi writers about why he loved sci-fi writers. I love you sons of bitches. You're all I read anymore. You're the only ones who will talk about the really terrific changes going on. You're the only ones with guts enough to really care about the future. Who really notice what machines do to us, what wars do to us, what cities do to us, what big, simple ideas do to us. What tremendous misunderstanding, mistakes, accidents, catastrophes do to us. You're the only ones zany enough to agonize over time and distance without limit, over mysteries that will never die, over the fact that we are right now determining whether the space voyage for the next billion years or so is going to heaven or hell. Kurt Vonnegut. We dedicate this award to all of our fellow zany sons of bitches. Venture forth. Thank you.
Mrs. Wang. Mrs. Wang.
Mrs. Wang, are you with us?
I am paying attention.
Now, you may only see a pile of receipts, but I see a story. I can see where this story is going. It does not look good.
What's happening?
Evelyn, I'm not your husband. I'm another version of him from another universe. I'm here because we need your help.
Very busy today. No time to help you.
Across the multiverse, I've seen thousands of Evelyns. You can access all of their memories, their emotions, even their skills. There's a great evil spreading throughout the many verses. And you may be your only chance of stopping it.
Don't make me fight you. I am really good.
I don't believe you.
Wow, that was really good.
He's waiting in the wings.
The universe
He speaks of senseless things.
is so much bigger
Script is you and me.
than you realize.
Of all the places I could be, I just want you to share with you.
Remember our mission concerning the fate of every single world of our infinite multiverse.
There is no way I am the Evelyn you are looking for.
Every rejection, every disappointment has led you here. To this moment. Don't let anything distract you from it.
Congratulations to the writers of Everything Everywhere All at Once. Up next, we have our second Kate Wilhelm Solstice Award of the evening. Please welcome me and join me in welcoming the much-beloved SFWA volunteer and ombudsman, mentor and friend to many, Gay Haldeman.
That's a tough act to follow. As was said, the Kate Wilhelm Solstice Award is given by SFWA for significant contributions to the science fiction, fantasy, and related genres community. Greg Bear, who passed away in 2022, certainly contributed a great deal to the community. For SFWA, he served as president from 1988 to 1990 and vice president before that. He was chairman of the Grievance Committee as well. He edited the SFWA Forum with his wife Astrid and the 2015 SFWA Nebula Showcase. He worked hard for this organization. Outside of SFWA, he served on the board of advisors for the Museum of Science Fiction and was part of the founding group of the Golden State Comic Book Convention, the predecessor of the San Diego Comic-Con, an international giving to the SFF community. Of course, he was an award-winning author who wrote over 50 books. His first short story, Destroyers, appeared in 1967 in famous science fiction, and his first novel, Hejira, was published in 1979. Bear won the Nebula Award for his novella Hard Fought and his novels Moving Mars and Darwin's Radio, both of which I loved. His stories Blood Music and Tangents also received both the Nebula Award and the Hugo Award, and in 2006, he received the Robert A. Heinlein Award. As we can see, his literary contributions to the community are many. He was also unfailingly kind to his colleagues and supported them as their careers developed. Past President Catherine Asaro said, Greg and his wife Astrid were always welcoming to me in the science fiction community, even when I was nobody. Greg treated me like an equal from day one. It meant the world to me. He was an amazing person. Past President Jane Yolen said, Greg was my vice president. Unflappable, always supportive, funny, endearing, and smart. and past President Robert Sawyer said, what I loved about his work was that it freely embraced the entire scope of science fiction has to offer, from the far future through the present day to cavorting with creatures we know only from the distant past. He took us on a grand tour of his boundless imagination. Greg is survived by his wife Astrid and his 2 children, Chloe and Alexandra. He really deserves this award, and I'm happy to present it to him. I wish it weren't posthumous. Thank you. Sheila Finch will be accepting this on his behalf and Astrid's behalf.
Good evening. I'm Sheila Finch, and when Astrid asked me if I would pick up the award for Greg, because she unfortunately cannot be here, I was very honored. So I won't take up your time talking about Greg, because I think you've heard enough. I'm very, very delighted to be able to do this. I'm going to read to you what his widow, Astrid, wrote. If I can see what I typed. Thank you to Jeffe Kennedy and the SFWA board for recognizing Greg's contributions to the science fiction and fantasy community with the Solstice Award. Greg truly loved our vast and eclectic community. He felt that he stood on the shoulder of giants, both literally and organizationally, and that he had debts to pay forward in his writing. His volunteering, his teaching, and his advocacy for the core values of science fiction and fantasy. He told stories, to tell them true, ask the next question. He delighted in the growing reach and diversity of SFWA and would have been truly honored to accept this award. Thank you.
Congratulations to Greg, and many thanks to Astrid and Sheila. Up next is an award very near and dear to my heart, and the heart of Mr. Barely Butts, if I'm being honest, game writing. Now, for those of you in the room, we had a little bit of a technical glitch earlier, and so the people online have no idea who Mr. Barely Butts is. So I'm just, if you'll humor me, gonna go a little bit of off script on my intro to game writing, because that means we also didn't get to give folks the context about what game writing is and how it kind of is different than some of our other forms of writing here today. So, and if you wanted to see the rest of what was clearly the best of my dramatic work in my life, they'll post that online later. But game writing is a really interesting challenge as someone who's done it, but not nearly as well as the folks who are nominated today. You know, when we print books, when we print novelettes or novellas or novels, the ink stays where it is. And admittedly, choose your own adventure books, there was a little bit of wandering. But when you write games, you can't control the choices that people make. And that's the whole point. You want to give people choice. The reason that people play games is they want to feel something. They want to feel like their time playing that game mattered, that something changed in the world. Sometimes people pick up a game because it feels like everything else is out of their control. I feel like we probably all can empathize with that feeling after the last few years. Whether it's just playing a game of Go Fish or whether it's playing a game of your favorite tabletop role-playing game where you're picking up a book and you open it up and there are creatures described and there are adventures and dungeons described and your game master like Matthew Mercer can talk you through those things. And the choices that your friends at the table make may take you in completely unexpected directions, but the person who wrote that book gave you a framework. A framework so you didn't have to invent that whole universe, but you could live inside it, and you and your friends could feel like you had control. And then video game writing, there's so much there. It's like a combination between script writing and regular. Some games are very narratively driven, like one of the nominees, Pentiment. There's a lot of text on screen. Then another one of the nominees, Stray. There's not a lot of written word. A lot of the writing is how the information is going to get to you over time. And what all of these games have in common is they're trying to help you see a range of choices before you, make a choice, and experience feelings. Sometimes they want you to experience mastery. Sometimes they want you to experience growth. You're not just wielding the words, but you're wielding game mechanics. You're wielding psychology, and you're blending it all together in this crazy cauldron. And it's a craft truly worth celebrating. And so I thank you, SFWA, for welcoming game writers into your community. I love that you celebrate all forms of narrative arts. And so to be eligible, games must have at least one credited writer. The Nebula for science fiction or fantasy game writing is given to an interactive or playable story-driven work that conveys a narrative, characters, or story background. Oh, and by the way, Mr. Barely Butts is a children's chair shaped like a bear from The Sims 2, because not all games are crazy epic journeys. Sometimes you just need a tiny teddy bear-shaped chair to give you a smile. And the finalists for the Nebula for game writing are
Elden Ring, written by Hidetaka Miyazaki and George R.R. Martin. Horizon Forbidden West, written by Ben McCall, John Gonzalez, Annie Catane, Ariadna Martinez, Nick Van Summeren Brand, Andrew Walsh, Adam Dolan, Ann Toole, Arion Terpstra, Ben Schroeder, Dee Warwick, and Giles Armstrong. Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel, written by Ajith George, F. Wesley Schneider, Justice Ramin Arman, Dominique Dickey, Bashir Gauss, Alistair Guzman, D. Fox Harrell, T.K. Johnson, Felice Zue Kwan, Serena Marie, Mimi Mondel, Mario Ortegon, Miyuki Jane Pinkard, Pam Punzalan, Aaron Roberts, Stephanie Yoon, and Terry H. Romero. Pentiment, written by Kate Dollarhide, Zoe Franznik, Martin Ratasep, and Josh Sawyer. Stray, written by Stephen Lerner, Vivian Mermet-Guillenet, and Colas Kula. Vampire, the Masquerade, Sins of the Sires, written by Natalia Theodoridou.
There's truly something for everyone in this group of finalists, and I hope if you're not typically a gamer, you'll give something a try. But now, the Nebula Award for Game Writing goes to Elden Ring.
In this interactive open-world RPG, players craft, explore, and journey through the lands between to repair the Elden Ring and become the Elden Lord. This is Hidetaka Miyazaki's first nomination and first Nebula Award. This is George R.R. Martin's 14th nomination and third overall win. This is his first Nebula for Best Game Writing.
It's truly an honor to be here, even though I am but a humble representative from Bandai Namco Entertainment. On behalf of From Software and all Elden Ring, please, we want to humbly thank all of our fans around the world, to SFWA for this incredible honor, and thank you all.
Congratulations to everyone who worked on Elden Ring. And now, please welcome past president and Service to SFWA Award winner, Michael Capabianco. Welcome, Michael.
Good to be here. Some of you may know this is not the first SFWA Service Award I have presented. As a matter of fact, I've done a fairly large number of them, but this is the one that giving me the most pleasure of all of the ones that I've done. And I'm a member of SFWA's History Committee, so here's a little history. The Service to SFWA Award was created in 1995 by then President Barbara Hambley to recognize SFWA volunteers who have gone beyond the call of duty to essentially keep SFWA running and keep SFWA fulfilling its mission statement. For a volunteer organization like SFWA, this is one of the most important awards we give, at least in my opinion. The award was renamed after volunteer extraordinaire Kevin O'Donnell Jr. After his death in 2012. A little more history. Bud Webster volunteered to create and curate a database of contact information for the estates and representatives of deceased science fiction and fantasy writers, and act as a contact point for publishers looking to reprint their work. Current winner Michelle Baker took over the position of estate contact after Bud died in 2016. During the last 7 years, she has helped literally hundreds of publishers and literary agents locate and contact estates and their representatives. For this extraordinary and dedicated work behind the scenes, I'm extremely pleased to present this year's Kevin O'Donnell Jr. Service to SFWA Award to Michelle Baker.
I feel like I should be giving SFWA an award for service to me, but here we are. For the past several years, I've been sort of the virtual front desk of the SFWA Estates Legacy Program, and one thing that keeps coming up is a publisher or a film producer will come to me and say, can you get me in touch with the estate of this author? She wrote this story that just changed my life when I was a kid, and I don't feel like enough people know about it, and I just really want to get that story out there and share it with people. And it's just always such a great thing to see. It's wonderful when you get to live to see your work praised, but also consider that you may never really know your full story as a writer. Every creator has the potential for immortality. If your words touch even one person, that person may go on to shine a light back on your work after you're gone. As long as you provide for that possibility, and so I really want to thank SFWA for doing this, the Estates Legacy Program, for helping writers make sure that their work can live on after them. Something that I've had a lot of time to think about recently. Some of you will be recognized tonight, and some of you may leave a little disappointed, at least for now. But please don't forget that just by sharing your stories with people and touching them in that way, that you've left a legacy. And you can't always predict the ripple effect that that legacy will have. Even after you've left this world, you may still have the power to make it just a little bit better. And this honor has definitely made my life a little bit better, so thank you for that.
Hearty congratulations to Michelle Baker. Thank you for your service to SFWA. Computer, how is that caterfly analysis coming?
The caterflies are learning more about our culture. They are pleased that SFWA is full of wonderful, kind people, though I now believe the chances that the Catafly are nefarious are at 73%.
I think you're overestimating, but SFWA is filled with wonderful, kind people.
The Cataflies also believe our home planet is a paradise of peace, love, and acceptance.
Let's say it's a work in progress. Though we're here to enjoy each other's company and hopefully have a little fun along the way, tonight is truly about celebrating the excellent artistic creations of phenomenally talented writers and creators. And part of that is remembering those we lost and whose absence is so keenly felt.
Remember that the atoms that cross this stage, that make up me and you and everyone in this room, were all forged in the hearts of stars and journeyed across the cosmos to gather together tonight. And though some of our favorite atoms have returned to the cosmos from where they came, we remember their love and their contributions, and they live on in our hearts.
Please join me in welcoming award-winning author, editor, and podcast host, Mur Lafferty.
Okay, you made this look easy. It's not. So, short stories require tight pacing, razor-sharp dialogue, and immense talent. And every nominee is better at that than I am. So I'm going to talk about advice. So last year, Connie Willis, Grandmaster, gave a bit of advice to the nominees, and since she's my idol, I kind of wanted to continue it, and maybe it'll become a tradition. Well, I want to remind you of last year's Connie's advice to both the winners and the losers were, do not say shit and/or do not throw a chair. Evergreen advice. But I have been both a winner and a loser, and I've had really interesting advice from different people in science fiction, and I want to share it with you. So for the losers, Mary Robinette Kowal told me one year, tomorrow, you will have the same number of awards as you do today, and you'll still be the same person and do the same amount of work, so it's gonna be okay. For the winner, I wanna say what Paolo Bacigalupi told me one time, which was, please give yourself a week to enjoy this before you go back to thinking that you are an imposter, a garbage writer, and complete waste of space, and you fooled us all, and you're never gonna write anything as good ever again. I'm paraphrasing, but really, enjoy it at least a little bit. I do want to say something about short stories and the past year. We took a couple of hits to the jaw. Twitter used to be a place for people to really build their community and find their readers, and, well, now a toddler with a blowtorch is kind of making the decisions there. And then Amazon killed their subscription services, which hurt a lot of our magazines. And when things like that happen, we think, what's going to happen to us? And I think it's hard, but we're going to keep writing. And the most important thing to do is help others, because we help each other up, we promote each other, and we can all be each other's Bigolus Dickolus. And if you do not know what I'm talking about, all you have to do is search Trigun and Time War. No naughty words, that's all you gotta do. But we're here to give out an award, so let's do that. Let's talk about short stories, and the nominees are
Destiny Delayed, written by Ogenichawi Donald Epeki. Give Me English, written by Ai Jiang. Rabbit Test, written by Samantha Mills. Dwen, written by Susan Palumbo. Dick Pig, written by Ian Munishwar. DIY, written by John Wiswell.
And the Nebula goes to Samantha Mills.
Told in truth and trauma across multiple timelines, Rabbit Test is a story about the past, present, and future of abortion rights in America. This is Samantha Mills' first nomination and first Nebula Award.
First of all, thank you, everybody here. Thank you to everybody who read this story, who shared it, who voted for it. Thank you to SFWA for putting on this event. Thank you to the rest of the nominees. Your work is amazing, and it was just an honor to be on the list with you. Thank you, Randy, my husband, who sat there with me while I worked on this for a month with 1,000 tabs open on our laptop saying, please do not touch anything. And thank you to Lynn and Michael Damian Thomas for seeing what I was trying to do and throwing all of their enthusiasm behind it at Uncanny. I thought it would strike a chord with a few people, possibly get me yelled at by a few other people, and I'd call it a day, happy that it was even published. Instead, I have been blown away by the reception since day one, and I can't say thank you enough. All of that said, I don't want this story to be timeless. I'd rather not have anyone still identifying with it in 5, 10, or 20 years, though I suspect they will be. When I imagine future readers curiously picking up past award winners, I want them to think, wow, how dated, things really sucked. When I imagine my kids grown up and looking back at my work, I want them to roll their eyes because, geez, Mom is so melodramatic. I want them to not even understand what I was so worked up about because it is so far from a concern for them. So at the same time that I have been astounded and grateful to everyone who has dropped me a kind note, I also keep finding myself apologizing right after I say thank you. So I say, thank you, I'm sorry. Thank you, I'm sorry. I am glad I wrote something that resonates with people at the same time that I wish it did not. I do love works that are timeless, stories that I can come back to again and again over the years with fresh perspective and understanding, but I do not want this story to be timeless. I want it to be history. Thank you.
It is 1931. And Maurice Friedman and Maxwell Edward Lapham have just published A Simple, Rapid Procedure for the Laboratory Diagnosis of Early Pregnancies in the American Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology, Volume 21. This simple, very rapid, by some standards, procedure involves one urine sample and one very unlucky rabbit. It is 1927. And Selmar Oschheim and Bernhard Zondak have just introduced the test first, actually, and theirs involves 5 packs of mice. But the doctors, both Jewish, will soon flee Nazi Germany. And except for the occasional lab that prefers breeding mice over rabbits, it is the Friedman test that will catch on instead. Step 1. Inject the urine sample into the veins of a live, juvenile female rabbit. Wait several days. Step 2. Dissect the unlucky bunny. Inspect its ovaries. If they have enlarged and turned yellow, then congratulations, or our condolences. This follicular maturation indicates a noticeable presence of HCG. You're pregnant.
Congratulations, Samantha. Now please, join me in welcoming SFWA board member and Nebula, Hugo, and Locus Award nominee, Jose Pablo Iriarte.
Good evening. I was asked to introduce this award tonight because nobody else on the board was quite sure what a novelette was. One of the board members said, well, leatherette is imitation leather, so... A different board member said, no, it's more like majorette or bachelorette or smurfette. That resulted in an awkward silence, much like this one, which was only broken when Jeffe said, wait, Joe, weren't you a finalist previously in this category? To which I gave my customary response, which was, I'm sorry, I was on another tab. Did you say something? Before I knew it, I had somehow agreed to come out on stage tonight and tell you all about this award because, and that's awkward because a novelette, of course, is a story that's written by an amazing and yet extraordinarily humble author. A novelette is like a short story, except with space to linger and explore. A novelette is like a novella, except tight enough to deliver a quick emotional punch. And if you're not sure what that looks like, Evernote's messing with me right now. The best way to discover for yourself is to read the 6 fabulous stories which are up for this award tonight. And the finalists are...
If you find yourself speaking to God, address God with the informal you. Written by John Chu. 2 Hands, Wrapped in Gold. Written by S.B. Divya. Murder by Pixel, Crime and Responsibility in the Digital Darkness. Written by S.L. Huang. A Dream of Electric Mothers. Written by Wale Talabi. The Prince of Salt and the Ocean's Bargain. Written by Natalia Theodoridou. We Built This City, written by Marie Vibert.
So awesome that I get to do this. And the Nebula Award for the Best Novelette goes to John Chu.
John Chu is accepting via video.
On the Beach at Night Alone by Walt Whitman. On the beach at night alone, as the old mother sways to and fro singing her husky song, I watch the bright stars shining and I think of a clef of the universe and of the future. A vast similitude interlocks all spheres grown, ungrown, small, large, suns, moons, planets, all distances of place, however wide, all distances of time, all inanimate forms, all souls, all living bodies, though they be ever so different or in different worlds, all gaseous, watery, vegetable, mineral processes, the fishes, the brutes, all nations, colors, barbarisms, civilizations, languages, all identities that have existed or may exist on this globe or any globe, all lives and deaths of the past, present, and future. This vast similitude spans them and always has spanned, and shall ever span them, compactly hold and enclose them. Michael Damian Thomas, Lynn Marie Thomas, everyone at Uncanny, thank you so much for publishing my story. My fellow finalists, it is an honor to be among your company. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. And now please welcome screenwriter, actress, and 2-time Nebula Toastmaster, Adria Walden. Oh, it sounds like we have one more piece before we go to Adrian.
Man is a Tom of Finland drawing rendered exquisitely in flesh and blood, but cranked up another notch or 7. Either his costume is giving him a lot of help, or the body is flat out motion captured and computer generated with a breathtaking but heightened realism. He is shrink wrapped in a black, short sleeve compression fit shirt, dark gray jeans that stretch across the thighs but need to be belted around the waist, and a pair of black tactical boots. His muscles bulge, popping off his frame. His wide shoulders, big chest, and thick back taper to a trim waist. Broad, sweeping thighs balance off his oversized torso. The effect is a body that's both exaggerated and aesthetically perfect. He looks like he can snap the cables with a flick of his fingers. Instead, he weaves in and out of them with grace.
Well, maybe I wasn't supposed to be here for that, but it's way more fun to see those and hear those out there. So thank you so much and congratulations again, John. And now, for real, please welcome screenwriter, actress, and two-time Nebula Toastmaster, Adria Walden.
Hello. After hosting this virtually for a couple of years, it's super fun to see everybody live and in person. Although I do have to say I am with the computer re the Caterflies. I think there's something super off about them, and I do not believe that we are safe. And I mean, you're all out there sitting on Friend Planet like it's no big deal. I think you're much braver than me, and I don't mean to be paranoid, but I swear I saw people dressed like giant rodents, like right across the street. All I'm saying is that we don't need to leave the banquet hall without a buddy, so let's look out for each other. Oh man. So I'm gonna present this award, and then I'm gonna get right back to the airship, where I hear there is a D&D game brewing with a very cool dungeon master, so I'm looking forward to that. And so now let's get on with the Nebula Award for Novella, which are works of fantasy and science fiction between 17,500 words and 40,000 words, or the average length of a text message from my mother. And the finalists are
A Prayer for the Crown Shy, written by Becky Chambers. Bishop's Opening, written by R.S.A. Garcia. I Never Liked You Anyway, written by Jordan Corella. Even Though I Knew the End, written by C.L. Polk. High Times in the Low Parliament, written by Kelly Robson.
Hello, everyone, and the Nebula goes to C.L. Polk.
A magical detective tracks down the White City vampire in this bracing sapphic noir with a dash of bittersweet romance. This is C.L. Polk's third total Nebula nomination and first nomination and win for Best Novella.
Wow. Good evening. If you are hearing this, then two things have happened. Even Though I Knew the End won a Nebula for Best Novella, and while my esteemed editor is reading these words to you, I am at home speechless. Being on the final ballot of a literary award is an incredible honor. I am grateful for the support that put this story on the shortlist, and to all my ballot mates, it's been wonderful to be in this cohort with you. There are so many people I want to thank for this moment, and I just know that I will forget people if I try. So thank you, all of you, for coming along with Helen Brandt as she did one last case for her best client. I am so grateful for your support. It means so much. Even Though I Knew the End is such an unlikely story. There are so many genres folded up inside it, and for some, it might be hard to decide where the book should belong in a bookstore. But the truth is, only science fiction and fantasy could truly embrace this novella, and that's where it's always belonged. You have done me an honor I will never forget.
Two men had come around the corner. Cops or robbers? I depressed the shutter button with the lens pointed in their direction before I grabbed air and gave a grin. The scene's clean, but a second look never hurt. Hell. An 8-pointed silver star on the shorter man's lapel told me who I was dealing with, and I put my hands down. Evening, gentlemen. Nice night. The shorter man took the lead, gun in hand. But the bigger one, even with his figure shrouded in shadow, made my heart leap. The light shifted to shine on half his face, and I forgot how to breathe. His chin, his mouth. Even 10 years older and a full foot taller, I knew. Ted? I took a step forward. Teddy. Helen, you shouldn't be here. Helen Brandt? The shorter one's voice rang with delighted scandal. You're still alive?
Congratulations, C.L. Polk. And before we move on, I just want to say a special thanks to our volunteers. The dance of trophies and awards and videos, we don't actually know who's winning backstage. And so sometimes we're like, oh, are they accepting online? Are they and everyone's just doing their absolute best, and so it's such a pleasure to work with here. And no matter whether there's technical problems or a surprise, everybody, it's just, and this is our first time like fully back in hybrid since the beginning, since before the pandemic. So my special thanks to everybody here who's made this possible, this confluence of people here and online. Thank you. Our next award is especially for books directed at our younger readers.
Statistically, the importance of inclusive and welcoming literature for the next generation of sci-fi and fantasy fans cannot be overstated.
Agreed. Everyone should be able to see themselves as the stars of their own stories. The beautiful thing about writing is that words are infinite, and there is space for everyone's unique interpretation of their unique identity. And that, in fact, conversely from normal, like what would occur to us normally, one person's unique expression of their identity actually makes all the other expressions richer and makes your writing more unique. So rather than like all of us channeling towards a single specific story path, seeing us broaden our horizons and allowing every child to see themselves as the stars of their own stories is truly giving everyone the world, and charting a path towards a better future. Please welcome via video the #1 New York Times best-selling author of Ninth House and Shadow and Bone, Leigh Bardugo.
Hi, I'm Leigh Bardugo, and I write all kinds of books, but I got my start in young adult. And I am delighted and honored to be introducing this year's finalists for the Andre Norton Nebula Award for middle grade and young adult fiction. Now, for me, and I'm guessing for some of the people watching me on this screen, middle school and high school were legitimate nightmare territory. This is the time in our lives when we're at our most vulnerable, and it's also when our worlds are the most cloistered. There's home, there's school, if you're lucky, there's the mall. I did a lot of browsing at Hot Topic. I didn't just need escape at that time. No, I needed to believe that, as Stephen King once promised, there were other worlds than these. Science fiction and fantasy gave them to me. And of course, as soon as I started reading it, I had to start writing it. It is a gateway drug after all. Were these early endeavors good? No, they focused on a young female assassin named Blood. Her brother's name was Jared. I guess Blood was a family name. They go on adventures. They meet a slightly psychic tavern keeper, a spiteful fairy named Una, lots of talking animals. But these were worlds that I could create, like the worlds that I was reading, where I felt powerful and valuable, even if I didn't feel that way in my everyday life. Whether we're 11 or 16 or 37, we need these worlds. Worlds where being smart and capable and brave and prepared are more important than being cute or popular. All of the finalists for this year's Norton Award are giving those possibilities and opening those worlds for young people at a time when they need them most. They're giving them worlds worth dreaming about. So thank you to the finalists, and good luck.
And the finalists for the Andre Norton Nebula Award for middle grade and young adult fiction are
Ruby Finley versus the Interstellar Invasion, written by K. Tempest Bradford. The Scratch Daughters, written by H.A. Clarke. The Mirrorwood, written by Diva Fagan. The Many Half-Lived Lives of Sam Sylvester, written by Maya McGregor. Every Bird a Prince, written by Jen Reese.
The Andre Norton Nebula Award for Middle Grade and Young Adult Fiction goes to K. Tempest Bradford.
Ruby Finley vs. the Interstellar Invasion is a backyard adventure mystery about 11-year-old Ruby, a black girl on an epic mission to save the weirdest bug she's ever seen. This is K. Tempest Bradford's first nomination and first Nebula Award.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. It's so pretty. Y'all, it's a nebula. Okay, I can't hold this while I talk. Okay, so dang, y'all. So yes, of course, I was like, I have my speech all prepared, and now I'm like, can I even say it? I promised I wouldn't cry. All right, so first of all, I have been in this community for over 20 years, and so I am very cognizant of what an honor it is to receive this award, and especially in a year with so many other amazing nominees in this category and amazing nominees for all of these awards. You know, I am just overwhelmed to be here with you all, to be honored in this way, and my heart is full. And, you know, the SFF community has really been a key part of my adult life. I grew up here. And so it's just, like I said, overwhelming. And when I first started building Ruby Finley's world, I really consciously crafted her community to be a reflection of the ones that I grew up in and that I'm still a part of. You know, my extended family is a community, and the people up and down our block were a community, and the folks who owned the businesses and went to churches and taught at the schools were in our community. And being surrounded by people who looked out for and cared for and supported everyone, and not just the people in their house and not just the nuclear family, it made us safer as kids, and it put us on the path to being adults who looked out and cared for and supported others. And I really wanted to capture that essence in the book, because community, true community, is a thing that humans need on a foundational level, the same way that we need stories. But we need our communities to be healthy ones for everyone. We need the people in our community to work toward equality and justice because that's what's right, and not just for attention or cookies. We need the people in our community to spend as much time reaching a hand back to pull others along as they do striding forward to break barriers. We need the people in our community to be as willing to help the witchy poos in the neighborhood as they are to help everyone else. And when you surround yourself with people like that, then you, all of you together, are unstoppable. Ask me how I know. This book exists because of the love and support of my family and my many communities. Because of my mother, who I miss deeply and wish that she were here to see this. My father, who is watching on the live stream, hopefully, and all the aunts and uncles and cousins and assorted friends who were like family. Many who found their way into this book, and they know who they are. And I owe a huge thank you to all of the small communities and the group chats I'm in who had to hear about this book as I went through the whole process. So shout out to the private Slacks and Discord servers I'm in. Shout out to all of the Black women who embraced me the moment they saw me walk through the door at the Worldcon and the WisCon and the Nebula conference that I snuck into in 2006. And made me part of their cohort. Special shout out to Black Phone. Special shout out to the Make Art Not War Collective. And particular thanks goes to the friends of mine who recognized this story's potential before I did and incentivized me to get it done. So Alethea, Nisi, Valia, and Stephen, you are everything, and I thank you. And of course, no book gets to bookshelves without the efforts of professional communities. And so a huge thank you to my agent Larissa and the entire team at Jill Grinberg Literary who made this entire process a joyful one. And to my editor Grace, who again made this entire process a joyful one and also helped me to really make this book shine, and the entire team at FSG Young Readers. And also special shout out to my cover artist because fire. And I am just, everything about this process has been wonderful. And also, thank you to everyone who nominated this book and everyone who voted for me. And thank you for making space for Ruby and her community in your hearts, because you will all always have a space in mine.
They told us we had to stay inside for safety, and my mom is mad, Mason was saying. She says it's a government plot to get into our business. Your mom thinks everything's a government plot, Brandon said. Your mama, Mason started, but she was drowned out by a horn noise. You know the rules, Jackie, the originator of the noise, said. No yo mama jokes in this chat. We don't want another incident. That was true. None of them wanted to relive the great Yo Mama War of Christmas break. It had lasted over a month, with the insults going from funny to convoluted and finally to downright mean. Feelings got hurt and people stayed mad for days. It got so bad that their actual mamas had to get involved and broker a peace. That's when they made the rule. No yo mama jokes and no fake trash talk in game chat. Not among themselves, at least.
Congratulations, Kate Tempest. And now for the special introduction and presentation of a brand new award given out for the first time this evening. Please welcome back to the stage SFWA President Jeffe Kennedy.
You're not rid of me yet. It is a long-standing tradition in SFWA that we do not give the Grand Master Award posthumously. There are many reasons for this, but the key piece is that the Grand Master is awarded to a living writer. However, sometimes a creator passes before we are able to recognize them in this way. We might lose them too soon, or we might lack the wit to recognize them during their lifetimes. It's my privilege this year to have been part of the board in creating a new award to recognize this gap. This year, the SFWA board voted to create a new award, the Infinity Award. The Infinity Award will honor those creators who have passed away before they could be considered for our Grand Master Award. The criteria are simple. We consider any creator who might have been awarded the Grand Master status during their lifetime, but we also award it with the caveat that any creator that we do give the Infinity Award to must return it should they come back to life. We're holding them to this. We hope that the Infinity Award will recognize that while some of our celebrated world builders, storytellers, and weavers of worlds are no longer with us, that their legacies will continue to inspire us all. So I'm proud to announce that tonight, the 58th Annual Nebula Awards will give out the inaugural Infinity Award. Because we are unable to give the Infinity Award recipients a trophy to take home, unless they come back to life, and in which case they have to give it back, we have decided that the award will come with a donation to a scholarship fund or charity relevant to that creator's loves and life. Here to present tonight's inaugural award is poet, educator, playwright, screenwriter, and head writer for Marvel's new Ironheart TV series, Chinaka Hodge. Please join her as we share the incredible legacy of our first Infinity Award winner, Octavia Butler. And enjoy this video created by the Octavia Butler Foundation.
We, the generations of readers forever changed by the collected works of Octavia Estelle Butler. We, the body of heirs to her prolific and perennially timely writings. We, the thinkers, engineers, architects, and artists who have known a world vastly improved by her imprint on it. We, the future she dreamed, the lovers of story and craft, the children who scoured pages and library stacks, hoping to find ourselves, did so only in Octavia E. Butler's text. In this way, she, singular in her approach, her concepts meticulously considered and pressed into a new canon, disrupting and redefining genre and humanity to be its best self. The steward of her estate, Jules Jackson, is a futurist and a legend in his own right. His unique vision and singular capacity to bring any great idea to fruition have put him into rarefied space as a true innovator. He is in attendance at the awards ceremony to accept this inaugural honor. I am thrilled to give context now and to later present him with the first ever Octavia E. Butler Infinity Award. We, who inherit her legacy, wish to thank the SFWA board for establishing this Infinity Award in our master teacher's honor.
Oh my gosh.
She is class, she is grace. Octavia E. Butler's writing encouraged an entire generation of thinkers, dramatists, scholars, critics to first imagine ourselves as worth study, and then situate ourselves at the center of the narrative. In her books, we are unapologetic, alive, sometimes in great peril against seemingly insurmountable odds, but always bursting alive, always bursting with color. Within the hauntings of kindred, the vampires of fledgling, planets distant and unknown in Imago and Dawn, truly the entirety of Butler's magnum opus was vast and rich and populated with the characters the genre so desperately needed to include in its canon. She planted wild seeds so that we could harvest. She held fervently to her thesis that writing simply about race or about gender or about class was not enough. Scrawled with urgency into her notes, Octavia reminded herself and future authors to write stories full of facts, to make people touch and taste and know, to make people feel. She wrote about humans, about how our consumption with dominance over each other would devastate us.
about how sustainable economics and agriculture were the only ways forward. She shared with us perspective on how we might most triumphantly survive. She was a visionary. So too must be the administrator of her wealth and what she left behind. The task is of utmost importance. It's shielding, it's heralding, and investing in her legacy as a careful steward. It requires an innovator's mind, a fierce understanding of intersectionality, and a whole lot of soul. The person helming this giant undertaking, the manager of Octavia E. Butler's prolific estate, if prone to being center stage, would already be a household name. He's been instrumental in advancements in tech, in music and its distribution, in fashion, patent law, industrial, and civic design for the better part of 4 decades. He was at the forefront of DJ culture, early enough to have impacted the DNA of sound selectors worldwide, building bridges across barriers of sexual orientation and race. He's a photographer, filmmaker, and gives the word shrewd a new credence. He's generous of spirit, but tough as steel. Under his careful supervision, the short stories, novels, and serial work Octavia left for us will find new lives on stage and on silver and small screen. All that he touches, he changes. The titles themselves get facelifts. Many of our favorite books get new covers redesigned to be as vibrant as the characters within. Octavia E. Butler's family, associates, and estate assert that since assuming this role, he has been fiercely dedicated to preserving her legacy, protecting and amplifying her intellectual property, and enriching her reputation. Jules Jackson is making an institution of the author. So fitting that he should accept this Infinity Award and scholarship in Octavia Estelle Butler's name, as his efforts in her honor will stand from now to the end of things known. Now, to accept this award, the unstoppable Jules Jackson.
Can I go catch this right now?
Yeah, right now. Yeah, that's right.
Let me hold some for you.
Yeah, hold some for you. I cannot follow that. About a year or so ago, I saw an acceptance speech that was so inspiring. A portion of that speech constantly reemerges within my subconscious. That speech was given by Issa Rae. In that speech, she said, "I am obsessed with the time that I have left and the small window that I have to make the changes that I want to see before I hopefully get old and die." I said, damn. Looked at my watch and said, me too. Here I am today to say, for those who have now chosen to pay attention, there's one thing that has become abundantly clear and apparent. Octavia Estelle Butler, who is the mother of Afrofuturism, has literally written herself into history. Now the Octavia E. Butler estate and Octavia E. Butler Enterprises has been tasked with the honor of archiving, diagramming, and extending the reach of Octavia's cherished body of work. Octavia taught her readers to imagine relentlessly our collective figures. Octavia painted the least respected of us in the center of every narrative, now reframing a genre. I am beyond excited to accept this inaugural Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association Award on behalf of the Octavia Butler estate, the mother of Afrofuturism. Octavia E. Butler Enterprises, and especially all of the incredible writers and storytellers who continue to be inspired by Octavia Butler. Thank you. I yield back.
I am so thrilled that Octavia Butler is the first recipient of the Infinity Award. It is so well deserved, and thank you so much to everyone from the estate and Jules for all of the work bringing her work to a new generation. We are all so humbled by your work.
Commander Platz,
Yes, computer?
I have a call for you from aboard the airship Nebula.
Oh, from who?
From the Outer Critic Circle and Obie Award-winning actor who currently plays the lovably cranky Paul Stamets on Star Trek Discovery, Anthony Rapp.
Computer, on screen.
Hello there, my name is Anthony Rapp. I am deeply honored to be a part of this wonderful occasion. I have been a science fiction and fantasy reader since pretty much as long as I can remember, when I started reading books avidly, you know, late 9, 10, 11 years old, somewhere in there. And it was around that time that I have been following these awards. So I'm super excited to be part of this community, even in this way. I'm sending this from my dressing room where I'm doing a show in New York. I wish I could be there in person. What I love about science fiction fantasy literature at its best is that it allows us to see ourselves and our world in new ways. It allows us to imagine the possibilities of transformed societies, selves, genders, governments, ways of engaging with each other across cultures, across species. And the best literature has literally changed my life, and I carry with me to this day. I congratulate all of the nominees and the winners tonight. You join the ranks of some of my favorite all-time novels, such as The Left Hand in Darkness and The Dispossessed by the late, great Ursula K. Le Guin, more recently N.K. Jemison's Broken Earth trilogy. So kudos to you. Thank you for brightening our lives. I'm especially impressed that this year there's a little more fantasy in the mix, because that's always cool. Sometimes it's a little more science fiction dominated. Thank you for bringing your imaginations, your hearts, your spirits, your talents, and your words to help make the world a brighter and better place. All the best to you.
And the finalists are
Legends and Lattes, written by Travis Baldry. Spear, written by Nicola Griffith. Nettle and Bone, written by T. Kingfisher. Babel, written by R.F. Kwong. Nona the Ninth, written by Tamsin Muir. The Mountain in the Sea, written by Ray Naylor.
And the Nebula Award for Novel goes to R.F. Kwong.
Babel, a historical fantasy epic of revolution and resistance, reimagines and retranslates the arcane history of the colonial British Empire. This is R.F. Kwong's second Nebula nomination and first Nebula Award.
I'm obviously not R.F. Kwong, but Rebecca left these words, so I will share them. Thank you so much for this honor. It means the world to me that my little unreadable book about etymology lectures has turned out actually to be quite readable and even enjoyable to many. Now I know it's late, so go enjoy the evening, and remember, it's always a good time to strike.
Violence shows them how much we're willing to give up, said Griffin. Violence is the only language they understand, because the system of extraction is inherently violent. Violence shocks the system, and the system cannot survive the shock. You have no idea what you're capable of, truly. You can't imagine how the world might shift unless you pull the trigger. Griffin pointed at the middle birch. Pull the trigger, kid. Robin obeyed. The bang split his ears. He nearly dropped the gun. He was sure he had not aimed true. He had not been prepared for the force of the kickback, and his arm trembled from wrist to shoulder. The birch was untouched. The bullet had flown pointlessly into the dark. But he had to admit that Griffin was right. The rush of that moment, the explosion of force contained within its hands, the sheer power he could trigger with just a twitch of his finger. It felt good.
Congratulations, R.F. Kwong, and congratulations again to all of tonight's winners. And
Commander Platz, I have some bad news. The Caterflies have infiltrated the airship Nebula and have hypnotized the remaining passengers.
improbable. Show me on screen.
Play with caterflies, never leave. Play with caterflies, never leave.
Aw, crap. As mission commander, I suppose I have to deal with this. Congratulations again to all of tonight's winners and finalists and our show crew and staff and all the volunteers, friends, writers, and fans who make SFWA what it is. And to the people out there creating all of the new science fiction and fantasy that we'll fall in love with in the years to come, thank you for sharing your art and your love of these genres with the world. We need you. Please keep it up. If you're part of the Nebula Conference, please join us in 5 minutes, online or in the Tiffany Room, for the Alternate Universe Awards, where all the finalists will share their acceptance speeches. We'd teleport you all over, but due to some alarming and unknown biosignatures in the transport buffer elsewhere in the quadrant, they've been taken offline for your protection. We've loved sharing this time and space with you. Please remember, the journey doesn't end here. The Nebula Conference continues online with writing dates, panels, and interstellar connections throughout the year. Good night. Be good, humans. And be good humans.